Whether you keep them in your home or love to see them in theirs, these are the creatures that bring us all together.
Reptiles. We're going to be delving into the experiences of reptile lovers from around the block and around the world. This is the Reptile Talk Podcast. What's up, everybody? This is Jeremy Turgeon from Brassman Reptiles.
And I'm Rob, and I'm keeping it real.
And today we've got a special guest. We're also a day late.
Yeah, we're a little late.
Sorry
if
about that.
Listening to this in real time and not listening to it after we release it, we're a day late. We're sorry.
Yeah.
Life got crazy.
Yep. Snow.
Things happen.
And stuff.
Yep.
And Rob works a lot.
Yeah.
So
it's too much.
It happened.
But I'm
anyway.
super excited because we've got Dayton from HD Arboreals now.
Woo!
How's it going, man?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
We're super pumped to have you. I'm excited to have someone who's super into Amazons on.
Hell yeah!
Like, it's not a lot of people that are diehard Amazon people, and not of those people who are diehard Amazon people, not all of them want to come on the phone and chat for an hour about stuff. So.
Yeah. That seems to be kind of common, especially with people who keep Amazons. Like, a lot of them are pretty low key.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
I
I'm even
can
low key,
respect
but
that.
I don't mind chatting.
I can respect that.
Yeah.
So for the people who might not know you or might not have heard of you, what kind of got you into reptiles in general?
I've always been into reptiles. It probably started with like dinosaurs,
Hell yeah.
when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And then just whenever I got a chance, going outside and looking for critters and stuff. So that's what. And then I kind of discovered that you could own one, not just like a wild animal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then, began the process of convincing my mom to allow me to do that.
What was your first reptile that you got?
A ball python.
Really?
Classic.
Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like back before any of the morphs, like maybe albinos were out. I think piebalds were out, but like $25,000.
Yeah.
Yep.
Plus, yeah.
So normal ball python was my first one.
All right.
That was my first pet snake, and back then, like, all the morphs were astronomically expensive, so I was just like, I just want to get a pet snake, and I had a couple lizards and stuff, and I had tarantulas and everything, but I didn't have any snakes, and then a local guy had produced some, like, black-back ball pythons, and I was like, it's a black-back ball python, and I, like, convinced my parents to let me get it, and I was just like, oh, man, I was so geeked out about it, but, nowadays, people for their first ball python, they're like, yeah, I got a blue-eyed leucistic, and I'm like, that wasn't even a thing when I first started keeping ball pythons.
Couldn't have been possible, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember like people. I didn't get into it, like start breeding. That didn't even cross my mind initially.
Yeah.
My first collection that I put together was just like a hobby collection of a random assortment of reptiles that I wanted to like own and hang out with. But back then, like when you were getting animals, people would be like, oh, look at this one's pattern is a little different, And that was like the extent. You're like, oh, I got a unique one. This one might have like a little bit of striping. But to see how far it's come since then and to realize that like, that's kind of how it started. You would just like notice subtle differences and with some selective breeding. I know that there are a lot of mutations involved too, but like the selective breeding also plays a part in that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, similar to what Rob was just saying. Like I've got a couple people back in my hometown that are like, I just kind of got my first snake, and I'm like, oh, what'd you get? And they're like, a banana ball python, and I'm like, do you realize that used to be $100,000? I can't believe that was your first snake.
Yeah,
it's absolutely incredible where that part of the industry has gone.
Yeah, I consider myself pretty frugal, especially when it doesn't come to reptiles.
Mm-hmm.
But when I started seriously getting into it with like the purpose of breeding, that's sort of where all my extra money was going. And to a certain point, like I had spent more money on like an individual snake than I had on any of the vehicles that I had previously, like. I think the first tiger morph that I got was like $3,500.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And my car was like $500. So
The life of a reptile keeper.
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Oh
So
man.
what really drew you to the Amazons? Because like I mean, I love Amazons, and I've been drawn to them for like a really long time, and I've been keeping them for a decent amount of time as well, and I've
Mhm.
bred them and everything. But it's always interesting to me to see what draws people to Amazons, because for the average person, like someone who's just getting into reptiles, they see green tree pythons, they see emerald tree boas, and they're like, I want that. It's bright green. It sits and perches on the thing, and like I get it. Like even regular people like them. But for Amazon
Yeah.
tree boas, people are like, okay, well, there's some that kind of look very interesting, and there's some that I don't think look very interesting. And then they're like, can I hold it? And everyone's like, you probably don't want to hold it. And they don't always perch up in the branches. So a lot of people are like, I guess I'll pass on those. But for the people who are like into them, like when I saw Amazon tree boas, I was like, I need
Yeah,
to
these
get
are
some of
super
those.
cool,
Those things
yeah.
are amazing. What was the thing that really drew you to the Amazons?
Um, after like I initially put together my first collection, um, that was like pre high school and into high school,
Yeah.
and I sort of got less involved in reptiles around that time, and so I sold off the animals that I
Hmm.
had. And after high school, uh, I kind of was looking for something to do, and I had like an interest in getting back into reptiles, and I wanted to breed because I hadn't done that before, and so I kind of planned it out a little bit, and had like some criteria of I what I wanted a species to, um, I don't know, have, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of
Um,
attributes you enjoy? Yeah.
yeah, and like there were other things that I want, like I wanted to sort of like make a name for myself, working with a species, and that was so I wanted to get kind of on the ground floor. I wanted a species that was cool and that I had interest in or whatever, but I also wanted to be able to, um, sort of.
Push the
I thought
envelope
it would
and
make it. Yeah, I thought it would make it easier to get a species that was less known.
mhm.
Mhm.
That's probably not the case. Having spent a good deal of time doing that, like you can make a name for yourself without being, I don't know, one of the main people working with a species, I guess, or
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
contributed a lot to like the genetics or anything like that. It's just putting in the dedication, working with reptiles, talking with a bunch of different people. You'll make a name for yourself. You don't need to.
You don't
I
need
don't
to
know.
go crazy. You
That
don't need to
that,
be the
that
first
that's not an
person.
important goal
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
But that was something I had in my mind. Um, and I remember really being fascinated with emerald tree boas,
Hmm.
Mhm.
but intimidated by them. That was sort of like the pinnacle. Um, People had a lot of difficulty keeping them in captivity, and so like I kind of shied away from that. But in sort of doing my research, I stumbled upon the Amazon tree boa, and they were also you could get them for cheaper. So
Notably
it
cheaper.
wasn't,
Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't as much of a commitment, monetarily.
Yeah.
Um, and, and yeah, that's kind of how I stumbled on them. And I think the first one I stumbled on was like a garden Halloween phase. And I was like, whoa, what the hell is that? Because they're like black and bright orange when they're
When they're
babies,
babies, yeah.
Yeah.
usually.
They're amazing.
And it just blew my mind. I was like, I didn't even know snakes like that existed, and they got the big bulgy eyes.
Hmm.
So that was super cool, and it only cost me like $100 or something like that.
Yeah. It's so wild to me that the Amazon prices are so low, considering they can be so incredibly beautiful. Like
For
when
sure.
I look at a Halloween Amazon tree boa, I'm like, all day that's like a $300 to $500 animal. And there's some people who are like, well, the red fades away and blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, but then when it's an adult, it's black and white, like really black with white patterning on it. Like that's still amazing. I don't see how it's any less cool than when it was a baby. I mean, I get red is a cool color, but like they're still really pretty as adults. And even captive bred, I feel like previously when I see people breeding Amazons, they would sell captive bred babies for even like $100 or $200, and I'm like, that it's worth so much more than that. You put a lot of work into them, and there's so much variety because they're so polygenic. You can get so many cool different looks out of the Amazon tree boas.
Yeah, it kind of, so there is some. I think that mostly has to do with like demand, supply and demand. You know, so like
Yeah.
they're not, they never will be as popular as like boa constrictor or ball python.
Yeah.
But it is funny that you say that, because you know you can have a bright, absolutely like incredibly, I don't even know how to describe it, red Amazon tree boa.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you see other people that work for 20 plus years trying to make a red boa or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's still kind of brownish, you know. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh look, my first generation red Amazon. Look at that. That's fucking crazy, right?
It's highlighter red. It's like bright stop sign red.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wow, you guys haven't touched that yet. So when
Yeah. So it was kind of a rabbit hole from the Halloween phase, and you know, I just found more and more variety as I got into them, and yeah, spiraled from there.
So your red project is probably one of your favorites, or what would you say is your favorite project that you're working with right now?
Oh man, so this is actually, well, maybe not my first year, but this is the first year that I intentionally produced. Oh, I can't even say it's intentional. The leopard morph has really hit me.
Yeah, I am in love with leopards, dude. I absolutely love them. They're just like such a stunning animal, and for a lot of people who might see like the high reds and the calicos and stuff like that, they're like, yeah, but it's not bright color, and it's like, it's different. It's not any less cool. It's just different with the like silver highlights and then the black spots on them. If you haven't seen what a leopard Amazon looks like, pause this episode right now
and Google that shit.
Yeah, Google it, or check out Dayton's Instagram, HD Arboreals. Go look at one of those leopards. They're going to be like silver colored with black spots on them, and then come back, because holy moly, they're such an incredible looking snake.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'll confess that, like, I've even sort of overlooked that until this year.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
It's at one point I made a choice because of the money that I had available to me. And I mean, like, the leopard was the cheaper one, but I chose to sort of go with the tiger morph instead of the leopard morph, because at the time I sort of thought what you could do with the leopard was limited, because they do seem to be linked with a certain set of colors.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the tiger you can have in all the colors and phases. And so that initially I spent my money on tigers, and so I then first started reproducing tigers. But this year was my first full litter of leopards. And I kind of hoping I was going to hit on it, because I used a het animal. So I wasn't sure, because it wasn't 100% het either. There's an interesting story behind that.
Yes, that is one
I
that
guess
I
we
want to
can
hear.
I guess we can dig into that a little bit.
Yes.
So the first leopard I produced was actually um, in 2015, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Totally by accident. Like my jaw hit the floor when I saw it. I was like, "What the hell? How is that even here?" It was. I guess you're gonna have to like. I'm just gonna use the gene name, like the mutation names.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I was using the sire of the litter was a GCR hypo male,
Mm-hmm.
paired to a female that I had picked up. It was one of my first Amazons, actually. I had picked up at a local show without really any history
Wow.
on her lineage.
That's crazy.
That's wild.
Yeah, and so it was actually one of her last litters. She was kind of getting a little older, so the fertility of the litter wasn't great, and I only ended up with two living babies. One was a hypo, and one was a leopard.
That's
That's
freaking
so
crazy.
wild.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and so I was like, how is this leopard here? You know?
yeah.
And so, like, after kind of spitballing with some people and thinking about it, you know, Gulf Coast Reptiles works with hypos and they work with leopards, and they do Amazon tree boas. You know, they're not. I don't know if they're super popular for doing Amazon tree boas, but I think they have like a whole reptile farm. You know.
yeah. Yeah.
And so that was just sort of like a pet project for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I was aware that he had crossed, you know, leopard and hypo, and I believe he had produced both genes in the same litter before.
Yes.
So my thought process was, okay, there's a possibility that my hypo, coming from Gulf Coast Reptiles, is het for leopard, but the odds of just a random female being het for leopard, I mean, like that would be lottery law.
Yeah, that's
you know,
astronomical
Yeah.
odds. Yeah.
just unintentionally, both of these random animals that are totally unrelated are het for leopard and produce a leopard or whatever.
That's
wild. And you know, well, so like after I spitballed it with some people, there, you know, like parthenogenesis
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
sort of came up, but the female wasn't a visual. Well, she wouldn't have to be, I guess, because, anyways,
she could be a headache.
I thought, yeah. So parthenogenesis kind of came up, and the thought was maybe that because you can have the male version of that too. I forget what it's called, but the female can actually give birth to a clone of the male. Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on what that term is. And so that was an option. And the leopard that was born was, it had like a skin fold. It had some issues shedding. When it was born, its umbilical cord was still attached. So it had some issues, you know, and that's kind of typical of a parthenogen baby.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So parthenogenesis was still sort of on the table because if you don't have a copy from each of the parents, then it'll be expressed, right? So you have one copy from the female, she clones herself, and that location of where the gene is at, this is super amateur talk, but doesn't receive a copy from the male, and so it'll be expressed.
Yeah.
Right.
So you would get a visual leopard from a het leopard female.
Exactly.
And so because I had paired this female before, I actually had some offspring from her. And this year I was able to get my hands on an adult visual male, and I paired it up with one of the offspring of that female that produced the first leopard that I had. And I was really hoping, because of the similarity to the female, that maybe maybe there was something, visual there, even though it's sort of, I mean, it's either a recessive or incomplete dominant gene,
Yeah.
right? And so that can be kind of tricky to tease out. But I thought because of the similarity between the two females, that maybe, hopefully, I would have a het leopard. But the odds were only like if the original female was het,
right,
it's
was
only
it
like
50%, yeah.
yeah. So I wasn't getting too hopeful on that, but I got a leopard of litters or a litter of leopards, and because of that female was a tiger, I got the combo as well. So
That's right. Yeah, the liger.
The liger.
the liger. Yeah. So I really hit it. I mean, like I hit it out of the park with the odds because I think out of 7, I got 5, visual.
Mm-hmm.
I got the liger, and I also got a tiger 100% het leopard.
It's so badass.
Yeah.
Yeah, that. So I was pretty floored with that because I wasn't even sure, I was going to get visuals. I was just going in to make some 100% hets.
Right.
But turns out, yeah. So that was nice.
Damn.
And seeing a whole litter in person and watching them shed and seeing like their color change from day to night, man.
Oh, dude, I can only imagine.
Unbelievable.
I can only
so
imagine
cool.
that those guys fired up just like, bam, in your face.
Yeah, when I worked with Jason
Yeah.
up in Maine, he had some leopards, and those things, I was just in love with them. They're so incredible to watch their color change from day to night, and then they just feel like, oh, they're so gorgeous. That silver is just like incredible on the base color.
Yeah, and there's actually, there's a bit of variety to them as well. In as far as color and patterns go.
Yes.
Like I also have an adult female that's sort of, steel gray, and she's pretty dark most of the time, but she's got, it's sort of like her pattern is mostly connected along her spine.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's kind of got like a black back, but she's dark. My male is a lot lighter. And the babies that I've had are super, super contrasty.
Hell yeah. So you posted recently the Lucy. How do you feel about the Lucy project? Because honestly, a lot of the people I know who like Amazons are like, why would you get rid of the color? That makes them makes them less cool. But I honestly think that the leucistic Amazons look amazing. I literally love them.
Because it's a fucking white snake, that's why.
Yeah.
Any white snake is cool. Come on.
That's very true.
Especially in Amazon.
Yeah, but especially you get those big bulgy black eyes on the little baby, and it's like, you're like a little fucking alien.
Yeah.
So I like the project. I guess I'll kind of get into that. There's kind of some debate on how that's inherited.
Yeah, I saw some stuff go down. What was it, 4 years ago or 5 years ago, where some
it's ongoing. There's still active debate on how that goes.
So the originals came from like quote unquote hypo animals, so like really nice bicolor Amazons or yellow Amazons.
Yeah.
And they thought that that's how it was inherited, and then all of a sudden someone bred a hypo to a non-hypo and produced visual leucistics. And we're like, oh crap, maybe it's just a recessive trait.
Yeah. I'm actually of the opinion, from my experience, I'm siding with the codominant.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I know. I'm aware of that other litter, and I don't really. I don't know. It's complicated. I'm open to it. I'm open to it either way. I really don't mind if it's recessive or codominant. Like, I'm just saying, based off of the litters that I've produced, I see. A roughly 50-50 split of animals that I can pick out and say, hey, these look totally different. they're the same color, they're the same pattern, and this one is glowing and this one isn't, you know.
Yeah.
So it's not a difference of like color in that scenario, right? Because you're like, okay, here's this solid yellow snake, and right next to it is this solid yellow snake, but this one is so much brighter than that one. That this is it, right? Like this is the hypo, and I've been able to continue through the generations and reproduce that and prove out at least a super, you know, from a selected animal that I selected as a hypo, and that could be chance, because I haven't had a whole lot of. I've only had one super litter. I've only had one litter with a leucistic in it.
Okay.
So my experience with that is somewhat limited. But I've produced, I don't know, I'd have to think, you know, maybe 6 or 7 hypo litters. But it's been a long process because I started out with one hypo from Gulf Coast Reptiles, and you know, I produced a litter, and then I bred the offspring back to the original male, and so it's been, you know, it was like 8 years to get to that point.
Yeah. I think it's also really important
yeah.
to note that, like, outside of Gulf Coast, there's only been, 2 or 3 people that have ever made leucistics outside of them. So, like, it's not like we have a giant pool to go from. It's like, okay, you've had an isolated litter here. This other person's had one litter with leucistics in it. And then I think there's, like, one other person who had also made leucistics. But there's such a small pool to compare and contrast from, especially where Amazon tree boas are so variable in general. Going from that to this kind of figuring out what the hypo trait exactly entails and figuring out exactly how to pick it out from some of the other stuff. We're still figuring all that stuff out, or I'm not working with it, so you guys, I mean, the people who are working with them, people who are looking at these litters and analyzing them, it's still being figured out right now. So it's not like, oh, people have been doing this forever, like they've been doing with ball pythons. This is still really, really new. The leucistics only have been around for 10 years, if that?
If that, yeah.
Yeah, which, I guess would be a long time in a project with some other species, maybe, right?
Yeah, I mean, stuff that double clutches and like...
or you can get up to size in 18 months.
Yeah, not Amazons,
Yeah. So it's been around a while, but it seems like any morph is super slow going with, like, developing it, I guess, or bringing it to market with the Amazons, because, like, even with the leopard's been around since, I don't know, 30 years or something like that, probably.
At least 20 years, yeah.
And I mean, they're becoming less common.
I know, dude. It's
I
crazy.
can think of maybe 2 litters that were produced this year, and one was in Europe.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me because when I first saw the leopards, I was like, oh my god, those things are amazing, and they were like, $5,000, and then the last time I saw them for sale, they were like $500, and then since then I have not seen another one for sale. Like, and I'm like, okay, so where are they at? Where's the price point right now? Because I could see them going for, $1,500 right now, and like selling quick because they're desirable. People want them, and there's not a lot of them around. But the last time I saw them for sale, they were literally selling for $475, and I was like, what is going on right now? What is happening?
Yeah. That I think it was around that really, like, that low period is when I ended up getting, like, my first one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they're in demand. I'm losing my train of thought here. Hang on.
That's all good.
We're getting sidetracked on the leopard thing again, damn it.
That's fine.
Well, we were talking about the Lucy, right?
Yeah.
So I think, there's some questions to the inheritance, and you had touched on like the natural variability of Amazon tree boas.
Yes.
And I think that causes a lot of problems, sort of sorting out how, different colors and mutations are inherited. But it can also cover up like maybe a more subtle gene, it's not a tiger that has, turns the pattern into a stripe. That's super obvious, right?
Yeah. Yeah, if you look at the calico stuff, it's like way more subtle when it's not like your patternless red animals. It can be a lot more subtle in some of the other colors and other stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean even that can be super variable. But so it'll be harder to sort of tease out. But even with some, I like to compare because a lot of these genes that we'll see in any species really, they're across species. Like albinism. There's albino people. There's albinism in all the different species of reptiles that we keep. And so I think you can use that to your advantage, and you can spot the same gene in multiple different species. And so, I'm super impressed with all the ball python mutations. And I don't work with ball pythons, but based on what I've heard, like there are mutations that don't really exist as well, that aren't actual mutations.
Yeah, that's very true. It's just randomly, naturally occurring polygenic variables that pop up.
Yeah, but some of the subtleties that people pick out as ball python mutations, it astonishes me. It's like, what? And I don't know what I'm looking at, but I'm like, whoa, how do you even? What's the difference? I don't see it.
No, yeah, 100%, yeah.
And so I think if you get that with a species that's as variable as Amazons, it's just that much more difficult.
Yeah.
Like one of the common things with the hypo is, hey, what's the difference between this hypo and this completely normal, unrelated, fully yellow patternless Amazon tree boa? And visually, maybe nothing. Right? Except for this one, we know comes from a line that's proven to have a super form, basically.
Leucistics, yeah.
Yeah, that makes leucistics. But if you think about that a little bit, you see the same leucistic mutation in other species, and that's the super form of a lighter animal, right?
Yeah, like the lesser ball python, where they're like
right.
A little bit lighter yellow colored. The pattern isn't changed all that much. It might make it a little bit cleaner, but it doesn't, make it crazy white. But you still produce that white snake from that lighter colored snake.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them in ball pythons, I think. Like fireball pythons, Mojave ball pythons. Yeah. And so it's a lighter snake that produces some form of leucism or leucistic animal.
Yeah.
And the same is with the fire boa. You have the super fire boa, which is a leucistic boa. And so I think it's the same thing basically in Amazon tree boas. But it can be really hard to pick out because you can have, an Amazon tree boa from the fully melanistic to patternless bright animal,
Yeah.
So there's that. As far as the viability of it goes, I think I have some questions about that, because of the time that the gene has been around, and we know there are adult leucistic animals out there, and there haven't been a whole lot of litters produced from them. I can think of one example. Rory produced at least one litter from his male leucistic.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
so they can reproduce, but there are more of them out there, and I'm not aware of any more litters. Um, I'm aware that Gulf Coast Reptiles has some adult females. So, just my natural curiosity wonders, do maybe females have trouble reproducing? I don't know. Um, the leucistic animal that I produced ended up dying.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Oh yeah, that sucks.
Yeah. So I don't have a leucistic animal in my collection, but it developed some sort of rapid growth in its abdomen or something, and died really quickly. But that's my experience from it. The hypos don't seem to have any issue producing. Again, I've produced quite a few litters of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From what I know of the people who have had the hypos do really well. And then, like you were saying, I would think that you would see more leucistics if there was, that high viability from them. But then again, I haven't really seen GCR post a lot of Amazon tree boas recently. I don't know if they just have had them on the back burner, or they're not doing as many litters, or what's going on with it. But 5 years ago, 7 years ago, they were posting a decent amount of animals available, and you would see them at the local expos. Like anytime that there was a local expo that they attended, I'd always see people posting pictures of the leucistics and of the hypos and stuff. But then since then, I really haven't seen anything from them. So it makes you wonder, like, what is actually going on, what they're doing, or whether they're just stockpiling right now. Because I think that's what they did with the leopards, is that they were stockpiling them for a couple years, and that's why they were selling them for so, quote unquote cheap.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they had that stockpile of them hanging around.
Yeah.
But that's yet to be determined. So.
That's yet to be determined. Yeah. I'm not involved in a whole bunch of other species, so I don't know if they're more active on like different groups or forums or whatever. But forums really aren't around anymore, which is where I remember them posting.
Yeah.
And when they first posted, they kind of got a lot of heat. They sort of posted their leucistic, and that upset a lot of people. I don't really know why, but that seems to be sort of typical. People, it's okay to be skeptical, but that can kind of come off. It can get overblown or negative or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think that put a bad taste in at least their mouth. Like I've had some conversations with Chris, and I enjoy the conversations with him. I haven't spoken with him in a while, but when I first produced my so to make note of something else about the hypogene, and sort of how it's inherited or whatever. My first litter that I had, I was a little confused. I wasn't sure what to expect. And the animals, I was like, are these hypo? Are they not hypo? Like, what's going on here? And it wasn't a small litter, but I was really confused by it for a little while. And so I think there's a lot of that. People being confused, what's hypo, what's not, having trouble picking out the difference. And I do think the other parentage affects that. For instance, I did in 2019, I did a GCR hypo to a visual leopard. And again, it was a smaller litter. It was four animals.
Yep.
But nothing that I would traditionally consider a hypo. There were 3 tricolored animals.
Okay.
If you don't know what that is, it's like yellow and orange with some gray pattern and stuff like that. And so there were 3 of those, and then there was 1 bicolor animal. but it was still pretty. It didn't have a lot of melanin on it, and so I'm wondering. I mean, I still don't know. I'm wondering if that's the hypo animal, and it is developing more melanin. I would see on any of my other hypos, but all of it is it's not black. There's no black on it where you see that on the systems. It's
Yeah.
light gray. So is that animal a hypo? Maybe.
I
But
guess I guess by definition of hypomelanisticism, perhaps so.
Yeah.
But
I think it's so weird because like the boas people call lots of things hypos because like a hypo boa, if you're talking like BCI or BI, if it is now imperator,
yeah,
the quote unquote hypos are not a recessive trait; it's a incomplete dominant, and they are just like a lighter colored animal, and they have brighter red to them. So like if you go to any other type of animal and you say it goes to hypomelanistic.
yeah.
That's not what they look
Not
like.
for yeah, exactly. Not for boa. It's like hyper or rhinophore
Yeah.
boa, but nobody's
Yeah.
saying that.
Yeah.
So when I speak of hypo, I'm not even. You can throw the definition out the window. I'm just talking about the line
Those
of animals.
Line of animals.
Yeah, for
Yes,
sure.
I'm talking about a specific line of animals. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's what they started calling them because initially all these animals were hypomelanistic, right?
right.
But that's already in the natural variation of Amazons.
Yes.
That's quite true. Yeah.
You know, you can have completely colored animals with melanin on them.
Mhm.
So that's where a lot of people get confused. But when I'm talking about hypo, it's just this specific lineage.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they necessarily have to be that hypomelanistic, but I still think there's a visual thing there.
Visual
So
component, yeah.
Yes, so I think you kind of have to compare each litter within the litter with its siblings, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Because even my best or most clean hypos, I've had normal animals that are completely unrelated that rival that, and if you look at them side by side, you probably won't be able to tell the difference. But if you then compare that hypo with its siblings, you will see the difference between the ones that I consider hypo and the ones that are not. And it does sort of, it goes with the percentage of what you would expect.
Yeah.
Roughly. And I had a pairing last year, which was my only hypo pair that produced offspring. It was my original male to one of the females from the first litter that I produced. Her sibling is the one that I proved out to be a super that produced the leucistic offspring from me.
Cool.
So I paired up this sister, and the sister was an animal that I had a lot of questions about in the litter because she was lacking a lot of she was pretty much solid, but she didn't quite look as great as these animals that I would 100% consider hypo, right? And so I paired her up to the original male, wondering if I was going to, get leucistic offspring from there, and I didn't. Now I could miss on the odds. She could be, het for leucistic or a visual hypo, and I just miss on the super.
Yeah.
Right.
But she was one that I had questions about because of how she was born and what she looked like, and I'm wondering, what the line is between hypo and good-looking normal or whatever, and you've seen that with some of the uglier or more melanistic animals that have produced leucistic offspring that were brought up earlier. So what's the line? Where is that? But my results, I didn't produce a super from that litter. So um, you
Yeah,
can,
it's tough
it
when it
sort
comes
of
to that.
solidified my thought process, and I'm like, I kind of, I didn't expect to get this because she didn't quite have the look.
Hmm.
Um, and so that sort of verified my eyeball test. But who knows? Um,
I think the more that
you
we
know,
do breeding and the more that it's kind of sorted that way, I think that it's going to make some answers clear because we, like I was saying before, we just have such a small sample size to go from. Once we get a little bit of a bigger sample size, I think we'll be able to pick out some stuff and be like, okay, these are the things that you're looking for. Even if it's you have to go by variation by type because you got your bicolors, your tricolors, your solid patternless animals, your colored patterned animals, your gardens, and all this different stuff.
right.
Once we get a little bit more under the belt as far as looking at full litters from hypo animals, looking at litters and comparing of stuff that's unrelated, it might make things a little bit easier to figure out.
Yeah, and especially if we can get some more litters from leucistic animals, because that being a super, all of them,
Yeah, theoretically, all your offspring.
anything
Yeah.
yeah, should be hypo, and so you can, you take that and pair it to a garden. You take that and you pair it to something else, and be like,
Bicolor and tricolor.
all
Yeah.
of these are hypos.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is there, you know, what's the variation and yeah, does it look like this is a recessive gene because they're all completely like they go the full spectrum?
Mm-hmm.
There is no look that any of them have.
Right.
Yeah, I think that once they breed like a visual leucistic to one of those like brown gardens, then we'll really figure it out. Because if you can breed out the brown out of that garden, then you
did something.
got something.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Just judging by the litters I've seen.
I think if you were to do that pairing and just posted that, the amount of people that would be very mad that you took a leucistic and bred it to that.
Yeah, I would just caption it pandapides and then.
I've had a really funky animal pop out of a hypo litter before, and it died.
Yeah.
It died, but it seemed to be, it was fully developed. It was fully colored and everything, but it was like light gray and salmon,
Really?
salmon color. It was super weird. Maybe I think I did maybe post it recently on my Instagram. I've been trying to use Instagram more than Facebook recently.
Way better, honestly.
It definitely is a bit better, yeah.
Yeah. So I've been trying to actively, throw pictures up on my Instagram, and build up a bit of a following on that. But I think I did post it recently. It's a super unique animal. Yeah. Unfortunately, it died.
Yeah.
but that's just part of the hobby.
So touchy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you'd also posted recently an Amazon Emerald cross. Is that one of the ones that was just born?
Yeah. I contacted the person after that, after I saw the post, and those they do happen, but they don't come around so often, and I really, even though I specialize in Amazons, I really do like all the Corrales, and I have kept most of them. I messaged them. They weren't someone I knew from, a group or anything like that. So I thought, hey, maybe they'll be willing to get rid of some of these or whatever.
Yeah.
And I happened to be like one of the people to contact them, and they were willing. So for a little negotiation, I ended up getting one.
That's such a unique situation too, because it was from a wild caught emerald, right? That had given birth in captivity. So she wasn't really with other snakes. Like she might have been with other snakes while she was being bagged and imported, but when she was brought into the U.S., she was kind of held solitarily. and so she was housed, maybe with another emerald. But half the litter came out as regular emeralds, and then 2 or 3 of the babies came out as emerald Amazon hybrids. So along the line, someplace or in the wild, she naturally bred with an Amazon.
Yeah, and that's sort of like the situation you see. Although some of the earlier breeders, like Danny Mendez had a collection of hybrids or several hybrid animals, and John Martin had produced a few litters and had animals hybrids in his collections. And I think maybe Rolf Kern from Dark Grove, or maybe I'm messing that up. Someone else earlier was working with them, but typically now you see them coming in from a gravid emerald giving birth.
Yeah.
And you don't see them that often again, like I said. But this litter was super cool because there did seem to be some like very visual, distinct hybrids, and also some that could have been fully emerald. And so you got like a dual sired litter, maybe.
That's what it looked like to me. Because
cool.
literally the babies that I saw in there, that like you could distinguish out the ones that are pure emerald Treboa caninus. They like look just like every caninus baby that I've ever seen. And then the one you got is very clearly an Amazon hybrid.
Yeah. So I just had to get it as a curiosity. If the price was right, it's like my only pet snake.
Yeah.
That's a badass pet snake,
it is,
too.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, I really don't like hybrids in general, but Amazon Emerald hybrids are one of the few that I'm like, well, it's not, because it naturally happens in the wild, and that's basically the beginning of a new, species, theoretically. I mean, the only thing that is the downside on that, or the thing that kind of plays against that, is because all the guys I know who have kept the Amazon Emerald hybrids, they say that they have issues shedding, they don't always eat great, they don't reproduce, and they typically have a tough time getting to adulthood, is basically what I've heard from everyone who's kept them before or produced them. So, but it's a naturally occurring variation.
Yeah. I was willing to get these because of my experience. I was like, hey, will you send it to me? Like, you don't even have to establish it. Just let me do that.
Yeah.
And they ended up doing that anyway. Like, I didn't have to wait any more time for shipping, but they got a couple meals in it before it even arrived. So
that's sweet.
Yeah, it's been a good feeder.
That's good.
And I haven't had any issues, but it's super young. I've heard that no one has really produced a litter from a hybrid.
Nope, they haven't.
But again, I don't really care. I just want to watch it develop. So
yeah, because there's like the 3 or 4 different variations. If you search Amazon Treboa hybrid or Emerald Treboa hybrid, there's like 3 or 4 individual animals that come up. There's like the really bright yellow one that's got like all the green speckling all over it. There's the darker colored like Halloween phase one. And then I think that one grew up to be a little bit more green with like black markings on it. And then there's like one other one that's like the common picture that pops up. But there isn't a lot of like documentation of how they might turn out. Because this one looks like it's more orange, kind of like a baby emerald. But it's got the darker markings on it. So I'm curious to see when it gets bigger, is it going to change more green, or is it going to keep some of that orange color to it?
Yeah. I've taken some crappy pictures of it, but the markings in person look. I'm so bad at pictures. I wish I had the patience to like maybe devote some time to learn how to. Like, I have a pretty nice. Like, I bought a pretty nice camera. But like I can't ever. Like, I take so many pictures with it, and like most of them are blurry. Like, I can't tell what's in focus while I'm taking the picture. I don't know. But yeah, it's also a lot easier to just like instantly upload a picture from my iPhone. So like, I lose patience really quick too, because like they're not the easiest species to photograph.
They're terrible. It's really hard to photograph them.
Yeah, it's bad. Like when you're, it's like especially with my nice camera, it's hard to like get it where you can focus on the whole body because they're like
With the head.
coiled up in the S position and
Where
it's
they're
like
coming
you'll focus
real
on.
close up to that heat signature and being like,
Yeah.
"Can I
Yeah.
bite this yet?"
Yeah, they're pretty active too. They move they move around a lot, and it's just such a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But anyways, like the markings on the hybrid animal are actually sort of like a blue green.
Really?
Yeah, it's a really fun. I'm excited to see. Yeah, I'm excited to see how the color change goes. If it's super extreme like an emerald, or maybe more gradual like an Amazon.
Yeah, definitely keep us posted because the guys that I talked to said that they had to like force feed or assist feed their babies for the first like year and a half to 2 years of their life. So if yours is already eating on its own, that's like a huge step in the right direction. Has it shed yet? Do you know if it's shed yet?
Yeah, it's had its first shed. It hasn't shed at my place yet.
Still,
but
because I heard that
it's
also
it's eating
the shed
and
cycles
had
on
it
them
first
can be
shed.
tough.
Yeah, no
That's
issues. So
interesting.
fingers crossed.
Yeah,
could be really-
that would be freaking awesome.
That could definitely put you a step ahead. That's super interesting. You got to keep posting pictures of that thing because I'm actually really curious. As someone who doesn't like hybrids, I'm really curious to see how that thing develops because I think that's cool.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. A really good buddy of mine is like super anti-hybrid,
Yeah.
and has maybe sort of drilled that into my head a little bit. But again, just curiosity. So
Yeah,
sure.
100%.
For sure.
Oh man. All right, so we're rounding out our time here for this episode, but before we end this, we always ask our guest one final question. So that question is, what in the realm of reptile, be it something in your own collection, something that you've seen online, or something that you've caught wind of through the grapevine, what in the realm of reptile has you excited about reptiles?
what in the realm of reptile has me excited about reptiles? It's like an interview question. You're gonna make me like pause and be quiet.
We're just gonna let you sweat it
I'll
out.
put some Jeopardy music in the background. It'll be perfect. Yeah.
I don't know that I need anything like any one thing in particular to be excited about reptiles.
That's also fair.
I'm gonna give you an answer because that just popped into my head.
Okay.
So, for my whole life, I've been the sole person in my family that has an interest in reptiles.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a daughter. I have a 3-year-old daughter now, and she can't help but be somewhat involved with how like I've got a large collection and it's just part of my life. But she has shown some interest, actually quite a bit of interest, and she goes in there with me. She helps out. She wants to hold animals and take them out and look at them. And so I'm excited to not be the only person in my family that has that interest.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome.
And I'd like to see how that progresses.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
Hell
man,
yeah.
for sure.
I think it's interesting because a lot of people, when I talk to them about keeping reptiles or this or that and the other thing, and I do a lot of educational programs, they're like, "Oh, you must do so many little boys' birthday parties," and I'm like, honestly, I do like twice as many little girls' birthday parties than I do little boys, because like when girls are young, they often are just like so curious about everything and they want to learn more, and then society kind of conditions them to be more afraid of these sort of things. But like literally just the other day it was a little kid's birthday party, a little boy's birthday party, but there was like a couple of his friends who were girls that were there, and one of the little girls who was there was like in love with the Madagascan giant hissing cockroaches, and she was like asking her dad, she was like, "Dad, can I take it home? I want some hissing cockroaches." And he was like, "I don't think your mom's gonna be okay with that," but she was like so into it. And I think that is just like awesome that you can help cultivate that with your daughter, because like if you can do that, there is like this huge world. There's so much potential for people to kind of grow like that,
Hell yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I hope she maintains it, and if she does, she'll have a super big head start compared to what I had.
For sure.
Hell
if she wants to be involved in that. So.
Hell yeah, man.
Most
So,
definitely.
if people want to find out more about you and the things that you're doing, where should they look you up?
You can look me up on Facebook or Instagram at HD Arboreals. Like I said, I'm trying to do more Instagram now, but I do still frequent both of them. So.
Sweet. Awesome, man.
Cool,
So,
man.
Thank you very much. We're glad we could talk to you tonight, and we'll have to have you on again sometime in the future.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I had a blast.
Cool, man.
Cool,
have a nice
man.
night.
All right, you too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Boom. That's where it's at, man.
Oh, yeah.
So, Jeremy,
Yeah.
you got some Amazons, too.
I have quite a few.
I've got a few Amazons, too. I really love Amazon tree boas.
Yeah, they're pretty sweet, dude.
But, just the amount of people that are working with them is really just starting to branch out right now because people are just so afraid of them previously. And
they definitely had a bad rap. I mean, I think the first pair that I ever had, I don't know, 10 or 12 years ago, I mean, they wanted nothing to do with you other than annihilate
to bite the hell out of you.
Yeah, that was it. You know what I mean? You try to take a picture of one, but there's like blood in half of the photo. I mean, it's not a good look. Yeah, it's not a good look.
Yeah. Dude, that's like back in the day when my friends had picked up a big Amazon tree boa at the White Plains Expo. We're like, oh, it's kind of like a big Amazon. Cool, we'll pick it up. He's looking to breed stuff. And we get it back to my house. We're like, this thing's really big, like bigger than most of the Amazon tree boas I've ever seen. So we're like, let's stretch it out and like see how long it actually was. The thing was 7'3" and
Holy
I've never
crap.
seen an Amazon that big since then. But I've got pictures on my Facebook of this Amazon, and it is like, I'll post it in our OnlyFans page because oh my god, it is like this massive Amazon tree boa. And you read in the books, it's like, oh, they get like 4 to 6 feet long, and I'm like, no, this thing was 7'3" It was huge.
Sheesh, that's massive. Yeah, I think I have like 18 or so Amazons right now, and I've got one girl that's probably right at 6 foot.
Nice.
And she would be my biggest one. I'll have to show her to you because I don't think you've seen her yet.
No,
but she's quite impressive. The head alone, I remember just like opening up that package and was like, oh, that's big. And she ain't friendly.
Heat-seeking missiles.
Yeah, seriously. So you're really partial to like the Halloween.
I love the Halloween
stuff.
Any of that heavily patterned stuff, I love that. And then bicolors because a bright yellow Amazon with orange patterning on it. I can't. And you know what? Something I'm gonna go off on a little rant here for a second. They're not candy canes. What color is a goddamn candy cane? It's red and white. People who mark bicolor Amazons as candy canes really make me upset.
Aw, it's okay, Rob.
I know. It's just a little gripe that I have.
That's fair.
It's irrelevant.
I definitely like bicolor stuff too. I'm of course just like everything else reptile related. I like
all
way
of it?
too much. But I definitely have a thing for bicolor stuff and red stuff. Although I have a couple yellow things that I am really liking, but reds and bicolor stuff are really what capture my attention the most.
It's hard not to love a red snake.
It's true.
Like a bright red snake.
It's true.
So, Jeremy, if people want to find out more about what you're doing and maybe see some pictures of you or Amazon Tree or something like that, where should they find you?
You can check me out on Instagram at Brassman Reptiles, Facebook at Brassman Reptiles. Check out YouTube, my YouTube at Brassman Reptiles.
Put out a new episode.
Yeah, I just put out a new video. Rob and I went to go visit our buddy Adam Harris down in Connecticut, Harris and Wonderland Pets. So that video is live now. You can go check it out. We had a really fun time checking out some of his really awesome snakes. Definitely focused a lot on his rhino rat snakes because, I mean, how can you not love rhino rat snakes? Yeah. But even some diadem snakes and a few other really cool, uncommon colubrids that Adam has. So make sure you go check that out. And I think that is about it for me. What about you, Rob? Where can people find you?
If you want to check out what I'm doing, Instagram at RobIsCreepingItReal. Although my account got shadow banned, I just found out, so you might have a tough time finding it. So Instagram doesn't like me because I post too many spicy memes. And on YouTube. I actually am trying tomorrow. I'm going to be trying to record a new video for my YouTube channel, just going over some of the babies that I produced this past season. And so Rob is Creeping It Real or Creeping It Real with Rob on YouTube. And that's pretty much it. Oh, no, wait. You got to check out our OnlyFans. If you would like to support this program and some of the things that Jeremy and I are doing, check out our OnlyFans. We're going to be posting some exclusive content on there. I have had some locks from some of my snakes this year, and I am not posting them on my personal social media. I'm just posting them on the OnlyFans. I got a couple secret projects that I'm not talking to people about. I'm just going to be posting on there. So if you're interested in seeing any of that stuff, check out our OnlyFans, onlyfans.com/reptile talk.
Boom.
And thanks for checking it out. We'll see you guys next time.
Yes, sir.